Thank you for joining in for another lesson from Learn from Examples. In today's lesson, we'll look at two examples on perpendicular lines. In the first example, we have find the equation of the line perpendicular to the line y is equal to 2x and passing through the points 1, 1 and 3, 1. Let's understand the question. We have a line given whose equation is y is equal to 2x, and we have another line which is perpendicular to this given line. The question is asking us to find the equation of the perpendicular line. To find the equation of the perpendicular line, we must know the gradient of the perpendicular line, and we must know at least one point on the perpendicular line. To find the gradient of the perpendicular line, we can find the gradient of this line and use it to find the perpendicular line gradient. And to find one point on this perpendicular line, we can find the midpoint of these 2 points. So let's go about getting the equation of the perpendicular line. Looking at the equation, now if the gradient of a given line is m1 and the gradient of another perpendicular line is m2, so we have two gradients, one is m1 and the perpendicular gradient is m2. Then if you multiply m1 and m2, your answer should be equal to -1. In other words, the gradient of the perpendicular line m2 can be found by dividing -1 with the gradient of the given line, and that's what we are going to do now. That we have the gradient, we have the equation of the given line y is equal to 2x. And from this equation, we can see that 2 is the gradient, because if the equation is given in the form y is equal to mx plus c, then the coefficient of x would be the gradient. So in this case, the gradient is 2. So m1 is 2 and m2 can be found by dividing -1 with m1. So we are dividing -1 with 2. So this is the gradient of our perpendicular line. Next, using the two given points, we'll find the midpoint. And to find the midpoint of 2 points, we have already done a video on that, so please check that out also. Now, if the midpoint has got two coordinates, the x and y coordinate, to find the x coordinate of the midpoint, take the x coordinate of one of the points and add it to the x coordinate of the other point. That is, add 1 and 3 and divide it by 2 to get the x coordinate of the midpoint. Similarly, to find the y coordinate of the midpoint, take the y coordinate from one of the points and add it to the y coordinate of the other point and divide by 2, and you get the y coordinate of the midpoint. So the midpoint that we have now is 2, 1. Now that we have found the gradient and the midpoint, all we have to do is substitute them in the formula for finding the equation. And the formula is y minus y1 is equal to m into x minus x1. In place of m, we substitute the gradient, which is -1/2, and in place of x1 and y1, we substitute the x and y coordinates. So x1 is 2 and y1 is 1. So substituting 2 and 1 and expanding the bracket by multiplying half inside, so that we have -1/2x, and -1/2 times -2 gives you 1 here. This -1 we shift it to the right side, so we get the equation of the perpendicular line as y is equal to -1/2x plus 2. Looking at example 2, we have find the equation of the line perpendicular to the line 3x plus y is equal to 6 and passing through the point -1, 9. Now in this question, we are given only one point, but we are given the equation in this form where y is not the subject. So the first thing that we will do to find the gradient from this equation, we'll have to make y the subject. So let's make y the subject first. So here we have the equation that is given to us, 3x plus y is equal to 6. And to make y the subject, we'll have to shift this 3x term to the right side. So shifting this 3x term to the right side, we get positive 3x comes this side and becomes -3x. And this 6 is already on the right side. It's +6, so it will remain +6. Now this equation is now in the form y is equal to mx plus c, and this is the value of m. So the given equation, the given line, has a gradient of -3, that is m1. To find m2, and m2 is the gradient of the perpendicular line, we have to divide -1 by m1. So dividing -1 by -3, we get 1/3 as the gradient of the perpendicular line. Now that we have the gradient and 1 point, all we have to do is again substitute in the formula y minus y1 is equal to m into x minus x1 to get the equation. In place of m, we substitute the gradient is 1/3. In place of x1, we substitute -1 from the point given here, and the y1 value is 9, so we're substituting that, and distributing 1/3 inside, we get 1/3 x, and 1/3 times +1, because there are two negatives here, so 1/3 times +1 is +1/3. This -9, we shift it on this side, becomes +9, so 9 plus 1/3 gives us 28/3. So the equation of the perpendicular line we get is y is equal to 1/3 x plus 28/3. Thank you very much for learning. And please go over this video a number of times so that you can master the concept. And if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and please subscribe to this video.